The email came at 7:42 a.m. sharp, cold, clipped and cruel. Until you apologize to Mrs. Grant for your outburst, Emily will not be allowed to return to school. My coffee cup trembled in my hand. The last of the warmth seeped through my fingers and bled into the kitchen counter as I reread the line, over and over, the words etching themselves into my brain like acid on glass. I could still see Mrs. Grant's smirk from last Friday, when she called my daughter an attention seeker, for crying after another student mocked her for not having a father. I tried to stay composed, but when she insinuated maybe Emily's behavior reflected the kind of home she came from, something in me snapped. Now here I was blacklisted, humiliated, and watching my 8-year-old's world crumble because I defended her. And the worst part? No one from that school had ever known the truth. I'd raised Emily alone since her father, Jason, decided he wasn't ready for the dad thing. What he was ready for, apparently, was sleeping with my best friend, Natalie, the one who used to help me through postpartum depression. I found out when I saw her wearing my late mother's necklace, the one Jason had sworn he'd lost. It had been 2 years since then, and I'd rebuilt everything from scratch. New apartment, new job, new school, new boundaries. I told myself I was fine. I even convinced myself that the cracks in my chest were just part of healing. But now, seeing that email felt like being dragged back into the same pit, powerless, dismissed, judged. I closed my laptop and whispered to myself, not this time. By noon I'd made my decision. Mrs. Grant and her smug board of administrators wanted an apology. They'd get a visit. And I wasn't coming alone. When my stepfather Charles married my mom 5 years ago, I didn't know what to make of him. He was older, quiet, almost painfully polite. The kind of man who wore tailored suits even at home. I never expected him to become my biggest ally after Mom passed. But he did. He treated Emily like his own granddaughter, showing up for every piano recital and parent meeting I couldn't attend. So when I told him what happened, he didn't hesitate. "Would you like me to accompany you?" he asked in his usual calm tone, setting down his newspaper. I hesitated. "Charles, you don't have to." He looked up over his glasses. "I insist." There was something about the way he said it, soft, steady but final, that made my breath hitch. The following morning, we drove up the long circular drive to Ridgewood Academy. It was the kind of place that smelled of privilege, freshly cut grass, marble foyers, polished ambition. I'd always felt small there, my thrift store shoes echoing too loudly on the tile. But today I didn't feel small. Not with Charles walking beside me, his presence commanding silent attention as the staff's whispers rippled like a breeze. We entered the boardroom where 3 administrators and Mrs. Grant sat waiting, all tight smiles and tense posture. Mrs. Grant crossed her arms. "Ms. Lane, I assume you're here to apologize." I could feel the heat rise in my chest. Before I could speak, Charles placed a hand on my shoulder. "Actually," he said evenly, "we're here to clarify a few things." Her smirk faltered. "And you are?" He smiled. "Charles Whitmore, Emily's step-grandfather." Recognition dawned in her eyes. The name Whitmore carried weight in this town. Whitmore Investments funded half the school's scholarships and community programs. You could see the panic flicker across her face. I wasn't aware." "That's apparent," he said. "Because if you had been, perhaps you would have considered the emotional impact of humiliating an 8-year-old girl for not having a father." The silence in that room was deafening. I glanced at Mrs. Grant, watching her composure unravel thread by thread. "My daughter doesn't need pity," I said softly. "She needs respect. And if standing up for her means I'm unwelcome here, then so be it." The head administrator cleared his throat. "Ms. Lane, I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding." Charles leaned forward. "No misunderstanding. But I do wonder if Ridgewood Academy aligns with the kind of institutions my company continues to support." The color drained from the man's face. Mrs. Grant's voice cracked. "Of course, Emily is welcome to return immediately. This was never meant to escalate." I met her gaze, and for the first time she looked small. "An apology," I said, "wasn't the problem. It was who you expected to apologize." We walked out to the car in silence. The sunlight felt different, sharper, cleaner, like it had been waiting for this moment too. When we reached the car, Charles turned to me. "You did well," he said simply. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You didn't have to come." He smiled faintly. I didn't come for them, Claire. I came for you. Something in me broke then, not from pain but from release. For years I'd been carrying the ghost of betrayal, the shame of being left behind, the constant fear of being less than. But standing there with the man who chose to stand beside me without asking anything in return, I realized I wasn't broken, just reborn. That night, as I tucked Emily into bed, she looked up at me sleepily. Mommy, she whispered, did you say sorry to Mrs. Grant? I smiled. No, sweetheart. But she said sorry to us. Her eyes fluttered closed, a tiny content smile forming on her lips. As I turned off the light, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You think you've won, Claire. But some things don't stay buried forever. Jason. My stomach tightened, the glow of peace dimming in an instant. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, my reflection staring back. A woman who had just won one battle but realized another was waiting in the shadows. And for the first time I wasn't afraid. Because this time I wasn't fighting alone.